Welcome to Third Shot Podcast, where we share our passion for pickleball and bring the community together. You can find us on our website, thirdshotpodcast.com, or on social media. Just search Third Shot Podcast if you're on Instagram and Facebook. If you're on Twitter, we're there at Third Shot Pod. Today, I'm joined with Uncle Greg, and we're ready for our shot.
We are ready. How you doing, Bridgie?
Good. How are you?
Cheers to you. I think we both got some tropical drinks going
Cheers.
today. Yummy ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's summertime, right? That's what it's all about. It's like get a little summery, fruity, refreshing drink. At least that's how I feel. The weather's starting to get better here, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny. I saw this post on Instagram, like a meme, and it said that we're actually just conditioned to like summertime because growing up, this was our vacation period from school. So it's just
hmm
ingrained in our minds to actually like summer, but they were like, but summer is actually terrible because it's hot and all these other things. But
So do you
just in our
like hot?
minds,
I
we're
mean, you
supposed
live
to
in
like
Las
it.
Vegas. Do you like the heat or do you not like the heat?
I have come to appreciate Las Vegas and its crazy weather, but this year the temps have been so mild because May and June is when we start reaching triple digits, like pretty consistently, but we're still in the 90s,
Nice,
like
nice.
low to mid 90s. This is incredible. This is a perfect time.
My daughter who's at UNLV, and she came up for the week, and she's been like enjoying the weather. She goes, "It's not 90; it's only 70s. And it's beautiful out right now." So and as you said, the air is fresher. Everything's just a little different when you
Yeah.
kind of get used to Las Vegas, and then you come back to the Bay Area and enjoy it again.
Yep. Changes your perspective.
It does. It does. And then when I go down to Vegas and I plan my trips to go visit you and my daughter, it's always around pickleball too. Right? I want to see
It
family. I want to eat. I want to play pickleball, and it's pretty cool because you know all the spots for us to go to and play. I just roll into town and you got it all lined up, like who we're going to play or when we're going to go play, and it's perfect.
Yeah. But you have some other vacations too this summer, right? Not just to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'm shooting over to Maui, doing a family
Ooh.
vacation in Maui, which I can't wait for. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. Usually, I'm planning where am I going to play golf? Like up
Mhm.
until I was hooked on pickleball, it's all about golf. My vacations, like, okay, which courses have I not played on Maui before? And what tee times can I get? And, can I get early enough where it's still cool and all that kind of stuff, right? Now it's all about where am I going to play pickleball? I don't have to
Yes.
bring my clubs this time and take up all the room in the rental car. I just have to bring a paddle and it just fits right in my carry on. I love it.
That's so awesome. And I think that's another perk of pickleball is unlike golf, like traveling and playing is seems to be so much easier because you can just throw your paddle in your suitcase and typically you're already packing clothes that you can play pickleball in. As long as you're not going for like a competition or anything, you can just wear basically any athletic attire.
Yeah. Well, the thing at Maui every year when I go over with my family, there's always four of us. And if you think about it, there's four people's luggage and then
Mhm.
a golf bag. It just doesn't fit in almost any car. Even when we would get SUVs or get Jeeps and stuff like that, it just would not fit. So I would either have to get a van, or what I end up doing most of the time recently is I would just rent golf clubs because it just was
Mm.
inconvenient to roll it through the airport, roll it out of the airport, and try to find a van that's big enough. Just didn't make sense for us. So now with me not bringing my clubs this time, I think all I'm going to do as far as my activities go is play pickleball in the mornings and look for the local courts.
Have you already looked into it? Knowing
Oh,
you,
you
I
bet.
would guess yes.
I think I started looking into it like months ago. But luckily there is a website that is the Maui Tennis and Pickleball Association. They have a website. I think it's Maui TPA.org. and it has all of the public pickleball courts on Maui, and it breaks it down by South Maui, Central Maui, and where I'm staying is going to be in West Maui. So there are the Lahaina Civic Center has 4 courts, and Napili Park has 4 courts. But this website's really cool because it told me that the Lahaina Civic Center has pickup games in the mornings every day.
Oh, see, that's good, the good information to know.
Yeah, because Napili Park, they don't have pickup games, so I think you have to bring your own group and play, right? It's kind of a
Mm.
scheduled type of thing. Where Lahaina Civic Center, I'm just gonna roll up there and go aloha, and put my paddle down or put it on the rack or whatever system they have there, and make some new friends.
Yes. Well, already pickleball people have seemed to be so welcoming and inviting. Like that's just what we've noticed so far. And then on
Yeah.
top of it, when you go to Hawaii, we've had such great experiences with the locals there and how inviting and welcoming they are. So you're not going to have any problem finding people to play with in Hawaii.
No, I just gotta break out my pigeon, and go my
Get a little
brother,
extra
and,
tan.
and then and then I
No.
get all the food recommendations. Like, where can I get local food? Where's the fun places to go
Yes,
to? Which brings
absolutely. Oh,
me to
you're,
my learning more question. I got to do this,
oh,
for
yes.
Russ, because Russ isn't joining us today. My learning more question is, when you plan a vacation, what are the priorities that you're trying to shoot for? What do you want to accomplish and fit in with everything else that you do?
I love that question because I absolutely love vacations. I think they're so fun and they just, they give you something to look forward to and keep planning towards. And I love planning a vacation. I'm the spreadsheet person that like puts things in an Excel spreadsheet and sends it to everybody. And it's like, this is the itinerary.
So you
So
have
when
every day kind of mapped out in a spreadsheet?
I do. Yes.
Nice.
Not to like every hour, but at least one planned activity for that day. So that way you don't just go there and waste time. I hate wasting time, like trying to figure it out once you get there. I like to be a little bit prepared.
So what
But
do you typically prepare? Like restaurants and food or activities, excursions? What are you planning for?
yes, all of the above. But I
Oh,
think what it comes down to for me, food is high on that list. We've talked so many times on here about how we're finding the newest and kind of trendy places to check out and the most delicious places in Vegas. But I take that to every place that I go and I try to find the most delicious thing or whatever that place is known for. So, New Orleans is coming up.
yeah, you're going
Definitely
to New
po'
Orleans,
boys.
and the Cajun food is fantastic down there. Have you already picked out some restaurants that you're gonna, that's a must see, must do?
We have, yeah. So I'm going with the group of friends, and we all kind of threw our idea in, and then each day we'll go to a different person's must do on the food list. But aside from food, because that's a huge part, but also activities, whether it's pickleball or a swamp tour at New Orleans. I just want to experience the place that I'm going to fully. I need like a
Well,
week long vacation.
I hear you, in New Orleans, the graveyard tours are big and popular. Are you doing any of those?
I am not, and I chose not to myself. And then one of the other friends that we're going with, we're very not afraid, but I guess afraid of ghosts. We don't want to open ourselves up to any spirits. Like we believe in spirits and ghosts, and I don't
Yeah.
need to put myself in a position to bring any spiritual friends home with me. So
Yeah.
I'll view it from afar, but I don't think I need to be in a graveyard.
So no graveyard, no haunted houses when you're in New Orleans.
None for me.
Okay.
What do you prioritize in a trip?
Well, now pickleball, right?
Yes, that's
I'm looking at different places around the country now because we're making so many friends because of this show. People are inviting us to go to different states, and I'm taking it very seriously. Like, where should I go and visit? Even if I'm just going by myself to visit these people, they're so generous and letting me stay at their homes or inviting me to stay at their homes, so I don't have to worry about hotels, stuff like that. So pickleball is number one, food's number two, right? Gotta make it work. With my tummy, I'm always looking to enjoy kind of the local food. Like when I'm in Hawaii, I
Yes.
want to do the local food of Hawaii. When I've been in New Orleans, like where you're going, I want to do the Cajun food. When I'm in Texas, I want to do the barbecue. When I'm up in the Northeast, I want to do the seafood, the lobster. So food obviously is very important to me. And then, it's just like relaxation time. Like when I go out and I want a vacation, I'm one of those people that I do like to kind of see as much as and fit as much as I can into a trip. But I
Hmm.
also now look at like, okay, we need a little bit of downtime just to relax and just kind of enjoy kind of the area and, get a vibe for the area. So I always ask people like, where can I go to kind of get the local vibe of an area? Whatever state I'm in. So I try to hit those spots as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking for nowadays.
Well, that sounds like so much fun. And I know when you finally get to go to Hawaii, you're going to have such a blast and you're going to have to take tons of photos with your new
I
pickleball friends.
will. I'm hoping by the time that I go to Hawaii, maybe I can do like a little live from Hawaii on the courts or at one of the courts so I can kind of bring it to everybody as it's happening.
Yes, we're definitely looking forward to that. Go live. Show us, make us envious and wish we were with you.
Got to get the video going, right?
Exactly. So,
Well,
speaking of travel,
mhm.
what do we have up next in the next segments of our show?
Well, we're trying to plan just for a little vacation. Our next guest had the plan for multiple states, multiple pickleball matches in a very short amount of time. We get the return visit of Dean Matt, who was the first time was breaking a record to try to do 48 matches in 48 days in 48 states. And when we come back, we're going to get the update. He's back home in Florida and he's going to tell us how that adventure went. So stay tuned.
Listen up, pickleball people. You can't slay on the court and look sloppy at the same time.
Thank goodness for Pickleball Athlete and their sweet styles.
Whether you want long sleeves, no sleeves, or funky and fun prints, Pickleball Athlete has got you covered.
Their selection is perfect for the super serious players or the jokers out there. And they don't just stop at clothes either.
Check out their awesome accessories that would make fabulous gifts for your favorite player. Or for yourself, let's be real.
And hey, you get to feel good about supporting a small business too. Find them at pickleballathlete.com.
Be sure to also follow on Facebook and Instagram.
Welcome back to Third Shot. We appreciate all the support that you've been giving us on social media and our website. Bridgie and I love getting the feedback. Russ loves getting the questions because he gets the research and it probably lends to one of his learning mores down the road. So please keep throwing those comments and questions our way. Now, Bridgie and I are super excited to have a return guest. Dean Matt is back from his adventure and setting a world record. Welcome back, Dean.
Hey, good to be here, and I'm glad I made it back to recap our trip.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to hear all of those details. But before we get to hear more, let's go ahead and celebrate with a shot.
Cheers. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and welcome home. For those who are just tuning in, I want to give a little background. We had Dean back on our show a couple of months ago, and he was sharing with us his plans to break a world record. It was called 48, 48, 48. So it was 48 states within 48 days that they were going to visit and play 48 different pickleball games in those states. So, Dean, last month, you were here with us with a special guest. There was two of you joining us, sharing those details, but today we only have you with us. What happened?
So the special guest, my partner Shannon Yeager, and I were going to take off May 1st and attempt this world record. And a week before we took off, Shannon manages a lot of airplanes and pilots, whereas I'm retired. He had a work commitment he just could not get out of. After clearing, he cleared the decks for 6 months and made May our month together, but something popped up, couldn't get out of it, and so a week before we took off, I had to rearrange it and do all the flights myself. So that's what happened. Shannon stayed on as a technical and weather advisor, and I needed his advice when I got to Salt Lake. We'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. But that's what happened. I was a little bummed out and a little trepidatious on doing this all by myself. But you just have to chew the elephant one bite at a time, and that's what I did. As it turned out, I ended up filling his seat with a variety of people. I had 5 or 6 people pop in and out of the plane with me for various legs, anywhere from 4 stops to 11 stops, 11 states. And I think it made the company, and it made the trip, and all the places we visited. It was a better story after all.
Well, we love great stories, so I can't wait to get to those. That's what I was kind of thinking. Like, as much as you would have loved to have Shannon with you, and I'm sure you miss his expertise up in the air there, was it kind of just more entertaining in a sense, just having a variety of different people? And I didn't realize that some people were on 4 different stops with you, doing 4 states with you. That's amazing.
Oh, that was my wife. That was the least amount of stops. The most amount of stops was a guy by the name of Kurt Lampke. He hopped in the plane from Indianapolis and all the way through Rhode Island. So that was 11 states.
Wow.
Yeah, my wife has flown with me before, obviously, and most of the other people have flown with me for maybe a flight here or there. But to actually, spend time overnight, some of the hotels we shared, some of the, in tight quarters in the plane. Some of them didn't like going through the clouds as much as I like going through the clouds. but it all worked out well. Everyone had a great time. I was able to see all the people I've been talking to on the phone for the last 6 months. Everybody rolled out the red carpet. Everyone was very welcoming. I mean, I stayed in people's houses that I never met. They never met me as well. I mean, that's just the pickleball community.
That's amazing. So all of the houses that you stayed in, were all of those families pickleball families? Like, they all really like the sport, or were they more on the aero side where they were pilots and things of like that?
No, it was all the places I stayed in people's homes were pickleball, and they ended up having their own pickleball courts. So out your way, Greg, out in Sacramento, I stayed at a couple, Steve and Nikki Grubbs. They invited me over. They heard about my adventure. I was still looking for a place to play in California. I was thinking it was going to be in the desert. They were up in Sacramento. Nikki reached out and said, "Hey, I heard about your adventure. Would you consider staying with us?" I said, "Well, tell me more. I'm intrigued." Well, we live on a water ski lake. Our kids are on the U.S. water ski team. We have our own private pickleball court on our residence. And oh, by the way, we live on a runway. So,
Oh my gosh, how perfect.
yeah, so that was perfect. Very nice people, very welcoming. They they run a nice business up there, and stay with them for one night. I was going to stay for 2 nights, but I ended up getting to Portland, Oregon, a night earlier. On the other coast, equally nice family. I stayed out in Virginia Beach with Charlie and Jennifer Wilson, and they have their own pickleball court in their backyard. They call their own. They branded it too. They call it Sip and Pickle. All the neighbors are there. My concern is what neighbor is going to throw them under the bus and get this thing quashed. But they've got it under control. Their neighbors are all pickleballers and enthused to play there. The day we played there, ex-Governor George Allen, and he's an ex-U.S. Senator also, he was there and played. The mayor of Virginia Beach was there as well. Bobby was there, and there was about 40 people there playing pickleball. We stayed there that night as well. So lots of hospitality, lots of good friendship, lots of new friends, and just a great adventure.
Well, it sounded like you had some dignitaries, you had some fans there kind of cheering you on and watching. Was that something that you were arranging, or the people that were kind of hosting you at their house or, at the courts, were they arranging it? How did that all work out?
Yeah. So when I would call, out of the 40, so first off, I only made it to 44 states. When I got to Salt Lake City, the first 18 stops were right on. Everything was humming along. My wife was with me for the last four stops. We get to Salt Lake City. We played Elise Jones out in Salt Lake City.
Wow.
She played, and I think Elise is playing right now in the doubles final out in
Yeah.
Texas. And she played with my wife, and the girls beat. I played with the owner of the club out there, and the girls beat the boys. And that's another place where we stayed at somebody's house. Um, but when we got in there, we beautiful scenery over the Cascade Mountains coming in from Boise, Idaho, and Portland, Oregon, into Salt Lake City over the Great Salt Lake. And I thought nothing of the weather for the next day, but before I went to bed, I checked the weather, and there was like clouds. I fly through clouds, not a big deal. But Salt Lake is surrounded by mountains, and you have to go about 13,000 feet, which was on that day at least above the freezing level. So I had to go through some clouds. The cloud had icing forecast in there, and that's just a no-no. I do like to live, and I like my life. So I got on the phone with Shannon back here at Mission Control back in Sarasota, and he said, Dean, there's no way out of Salt Lake City today. Saturday, it was a Saturday. We got in there Friday, and all day Saturday, no way to get out of there. I'm like, you know what, Shannon, you're right. So let me noodle on what I have to do from here. But then Saturday turned into Sunday, same thing. But if the weather was bad Saturday, it was the same for Sunday. And if I cancel Saturday, I had to cancel Sunday. So my goal has always been in the back of my mind, if I've got a delay, my goal is to disappoint the least amount of people. So the way to do that, I decided, was not to keep pushing the next 30 stops back 2 days. That would have caused a logistical nightmare. Some people would have said, I've got people coming on such and such a day. I reserved the courts. I got the media coming. And the easiest path, although the thing I regret most, is I had to cancel four states. So I ended up canceling Wyoming and Montana, North Dakota, and Nebraska. And then I got back on schedule, though. I almost had to cancel Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but the day before, a newsman called me up from Sioux Falls and said, "Hey, are we on schedule for tomorrow to play tomorrow in Sioux Falls? Because I got the camera crew ready." And I said, "I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I got held up in Salt Lake City with weather, and I'm going to just have to cancel that." And he said, "I understand. I'm sorry. It was we were looking forward to it." Um, I was going to stop in Sioux Falls the next day anyway. I had to pick up my buddy Rod Anderson. Rod he lives in Sioux Falls. I met him down here in Sarasota, where he also lives part of the year, and he's going to be with me through Indianapolis. And as I took off, finally Monday morning, after 2 days of just nothing to do, basically, I took off. I wanted to get back on schedule. I took basically the longest flight in a small plane I've ever been in. It was 5.5 hours. Got to Sioux Falls. As soon as I took off, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I got to pick Rod up in Sioux Falls anyway. So I started texting him from the air. I said, Rod, I wrote off South Dakota. I said, Rod, you could do this. In about 3 hours, he got the venue rearranged. He called the news guys that I talked to the day before, and he got Sioux Falls back on the map. So I got in there. He picked me up. We landed. We played our game in Sioux Falls, and then we headed out for Des Moines later that night. So we saved South Dakota, but we missed 4 states, and those people worked as hard as all the other states to get their venues ready and their cameras ready and the people lined up. But to answer your question, who lines all that stuff up? At each stop, I had basically a city ambassador. Sometimes it would be the visitors bureau person. Sometimes it was somebody I knew. But let's say it was a visitors bureau, I said, "Hey, I'm working on this wacky adventure." I told them about it, and they're like, "We want to be part of this." There wasn't one visitors bureau or state that didn't want to be part of it. They all wanted to be part of it. Now they're not going to make any money off of it. They're not. It's really not going to cost them anything either. Maybe they had to pay for a hotel room or something like that. But pick me up. This is what they needed to do: pick us up at the airport, get the news media out there to cover the event. Alert them that this wacky world record is being attempted in their town. They're one of 48 cities in the country that the circus is passing through, so to speak. And find me some people to play and a place to play. So we played anybody from, as you said, Greg, dignitaries, governors. We played a couple ex-governors, George Allen, as I mentioned, out in Virginia. We played ex-governor John Lynch up in New Hampshire. We played a lot of mayors, including the mayor of Albuquerque and many other smaller towns. We played professionals, pickleball professionals like Elise Jones. We played earlier. We played Hunter and Yates Johnson. We played Dave the Badger Weinbach up in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. That was a hoot. He's a funny guy. We played Yvonne and James Hackenberg up in Kalamazoo, and Yvonne's 97-year-old mother, who stole the show. Stole the show up there.
Still playing, huh?
She plays. She cuts her own grass. She drives her own car. She's totally self-sufficient, and she's just a sweetheart. We played Scott Moore out in Colorado Springs, pickleball professional out there. We played, I mentioned Elise, and we played a couple pickleball Hall of Famers up in Portland, Oregon. Steve Parento, or was it Scott Parento, and Norman Davis, I believe, is the other guy. We also played some NFL guys and NBA alum there up in Cincinnati. We played an individual in a wheelchair up in Eagle, Idaho. We played. He was a great guy to be with. We played Special Olympics kids in Jonesboro, Arkansas. There was a little fundraiser going on, and we raised a little bit of funds for the Special Olympics there. We played inner city youth in Memphis, Tennessee. So, and then we played folks like you and me, all over the board. So it was just a variety of people that we played. As far as where we played, I mentioned some private residences. We played at the iconic Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. They have a 3,500 seat arena, center court. We played there. We played on the airport tarmac the next day out in Frederick, Maryland. We landed the plane exactly at 10 o'clock. They had the court striped out on the tarmac waiting for us. We parked the plane right next to the court.
I'm hoping that they didn't have any planes trying to land in the middle of your match.
No, it was a private tarmac.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't on the runway. And then we rolled out on court. We played our game, and we were we were in and out of there in an hour.
Wow.
So, which out of all of the courts that you got to play at, which was your favorite?
Wait, before you answer that question, we do got to take a quick break. But for people, this is a great question. I want to hear the answer as well. But hang on with us. We'll be right back with Dean Matt.
It's Bridgie and Uncle Greg with Third Shot Podcast. We're looking for our next tournament.
We really love sharing our experiences playing tournaments as a fun part of our Third Shot Podcast journey.
We've been fortunate enough to be invited to play in a number of tournaments and broadcast live from the events.
So share your event with us, and we can get the word out to our pickleball community. It's all about helping and growing the sport we love.
And we're hoping we'll get to meet you there. This is Third Shot Podcast, and we're back from break with Dean Matt. He is the first pickleball world record holder. And before we went to break, I had asked a very exciting question about which of his courts was his favorite that he got to play at. And just a little bit longer, because we're going to take a shot real quick, and then we get to find out the answer. So cheers to both of you.
Cheers to you, Bridge.
All right. We're at the edge of our seats to find out.
Oh, I'm going to disappoint you.
No.
After that build-up, how could this happen?
Um, I got asked that quite a bit by a lot of the reporters. Let me tell you a little bit about the coverage that we had. On day 4, my wife is watching Fox News here in Florida, and who's who's being interviewed? Me. I was interviewed by Fox. She almost spits out her coffee. Like, what's he doing on TV? Somehow they found out about this wacky trip and they followed us, and it kind of snowballed from there. Every stop that we went to, there were cameras. Many stops had 3 cameras, from 3 different news stations, and our last a lot of Fox coverage, a lot of ABC, CB, all of them were there at some point. So um, I posted those on my website, all the known coverage, and it got a lot of interest across the country. At most of the stops, the media would ask me, what's your favorite stop? On day 1, that was easy because I only played, one place. But after that, just when I get in the plane, I'm like, boy, that was a fun stop. That was a lot of fun. And then you get to the next stop, and it was equally fun and a little bit different. And the next one, every stop had its own story. I mentioned 97-year-old Minnie LaPointe up in Kalamazoo. I mean, that was the story up there. Scottsdale, we played at the Orchard at Jigsaw Health. Uh, Another, the private residences we played at were fine. Many of the public courts we played at were a good story. They would have balloons and they would welcome us like we were celebrities, and the news media was there to cover this wacky story. And they were all proud of their courts. Many of them had just got new courts. Many of them got new courts and need more courts. A lot of private country clubs we played at, a lot of YMCA or private tennis facilities. We played at 3 Chicken and Pickles in a row. But every stop had its own story. So I'm going to disappoint you and say I really don't have a favorite because everything was just so unique and fun.
Well,
That's
tell us.
not disappointing
No,
because
it's
that means
not.
you had such a great time, and it's really cool that each one had such a special story that you can look back and have that memory with.
Before I took off, my wife said, this trip's going to go by really, really quick. And, it was 6 months of planning and build up, and a lot of, is the weather going to be okay? And how many people am I going to disappoint? And, if am I going to get to all the states and whatnot? And, Scottsdale was on one side of the country, my bottom left corner, right? And then Portland, Oregon was my top. Scottsdale, when I took off, just seemed so far away. I've been there before in a small plane, but it just seemed so far away. It was the 7th day, and a lot of places to get through. But once I turned the key, I mean, our first stop started out was Mobile, Alabama. We played at the Mobile Tennis Center, which is the second largest tennis center in a row. Our guy there was there waiting on the ground when we landed to take us to the tennis center. His name was Garrett Wagner. The event got off without a hitch, and after that, I knew that everything was going to be okay. There were going to be people waiting for us, and no one was going to forget about us. And I would call them a couple days in advance and just say, "Weather's looking good. We're on track." I was never late for a landing, other than having to cancel those four states. But I was never late for a landing. We had plenty of downtime. The first couple days, we were doing 2 stops a day, 2 states a day. By the time we got up to uh, the Chicago area, we were doing 3 states a day. So,
Wow.
yeah, when we got to Maine, that was my furthest northeast. I could see the end in sight. And I was counting the days till I got home. It wasn't that I was bored or anxious to get home, but I was anxious to get home a little bit. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
enjoyed the company all down the East Coast. I met up with a fellow traveler. This is kind of a neat story. His name is Jimmy Santangelo, and I posted a lot of stuff on Instagram, and I saw this guy who's bought a new van, a sleeper van, and it's like a big sprinter van, and he was going to play 100 stops, 100 places. I saw him take off on the West Coast. He's from California, out in San Diego, and he was staying in a lot of the places or playing in a lot of places I was going to play at. So I ended up calling him. I said, "Hey Jimmy, what's your deal out there? We're kind of doing something similar." And so we kind of compared schedules and whatnot. our paths crossed in Colorado Springs. So I played with him in Colorado Springs when we played Scott Moore. And I said, hey, Jimmy, can you get up to Rhode Island in a couple of weeks? Because I'd love to have you come down the East Coast with me because I've got some availability. And so I thought maybe he would drive the van to Midway Airport in Chicago, take a flight out there, meet up with me, and come back to Midway. He ended up driving to Sarasota, where we were going to terminate the whole trip where I live. So he drove his van to Sarasota, got up to Providence, Rhode Island a couple of days before I got up there. But he was gung ho. He hopped in the plane and we flew it all the way down for 8 states down the coast, and became a good friend of mine.
How cool!
Yeah, that is really neat.
Now he's still driving up the East Coast in his van. I guess his mom lives up in Charlotte, North Carolina.
So he's still on his 100 stops or whatever?
I think he's like in the 53 now or whatever. But
is he trying to do it in a certain amount of time, or is he just kind of taking his time and just saying, I want to do 100 different places?
100 different places, and he'll be back in California in September sometime. So his trip is really, really epic.
I can only imagine what the gas bill is for that.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
he was getting 20 miles a gallon. My trip ended up being about 75 hours in the air, about 1,600 gallons of gas, and at about 20 gallons an hour is what I burn. And gas was like anywhere from $5.25 to I think the most expensive was out your way, about $7 a gallon.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
My goodness. I just filled up today. Oh my goodness.
I saw the prices on the ground in Sacramento. They were like $5 something.
It's $5 something. Yeah. It's $5 something. It's crazy. So, I mean, you got to meet some I can only imagine the amount of people you met, the interviews you did. Like, who stood out as like a big personality that you would just like tell people about? Like, who's the big personalities you met?
Yeah, I would say Dave Weinbach was a personality. We get to Sun Prairie, and it's like the whole town was out there. Sun Prairie is by Madison, Wisconsin, and we get there, and they have a bratwurst picnic going on there. Everyone's like shaking our hands, and there were over 100 people there. And Dave was out there already playing, and then they were playing polka music, and he's a funny guy. So I think I paired up with him for a game or two. But he was entertaining the crowd, and the crowd was digging that. So that was kind of a fun stop.
Is he a big talker?
Oh yeah, big trash talker. Like me, I've got about 10 jokes, and I could use them over and over again because I get to the next state, and the only one that's heard these jokes is my partner that I was with. And he's the same way, because I got to Kalamazoo, and I was telling James Hackenberg, I said, yeah, we played with Dave Weinbach, and I said, yeah, when he hit a lob, he hit a bad lob, he says, this ain't the Villages in Florida. And James Hackenberg heard that joke before, and he says, did he use the one where you go up the middle? Yeah, so he's heard them all before too.
So what an exciting trip, and it seems like every stop that you went to, it really was an event.
Yeah, the second stop, we were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they made a lot of homemade stuff. There were balloons and maps. Welcome to pilots out in, I think, road out in Delaware. They had a chair reserved. It said pilots parking only, so everyone had their own little spin on it. But again, they were all welcoming. They wanted to be part of this world record. It's not a Guinness World Record. After I missed the 4 states, I'm not quite sure what world record is, but there's a world record in there someplace, right? Like the most states of pickleball being played in a 30-day period. So it really wasn't about.
That's what I was going to ask you. You did 44 states in 30 days. Is that how long it took you?
26 days.
26 days.
Wow.
My goodness. Congratulations.
I had about 3 or 4 days of downtime. I mean, if I really wanted to step on the pedal, I could have got those. I probably could have got all 48 states done in about 20 days. But it really wasn't about speed or the record. That was just an excuse. This world record was just an excuse to get the media to come out and tell 48 or 44 stories about pickleball communities. And that's whatever, from the guy that just put up his new pickleball facility in Cincinnati, the Pickle Lodge, which wasn't technically open yet. It's still opening. It was about the chicken and pickle franchises and what a good thing they're doing out there. It was about the local courts that opened up in any number of states we played at. Amarillo, Texas, for instance. When I was out there, it was May 5th, and they had a big event. That was another big event they had going on. Welcoming me. They had Dingo de Mayo going on. And then for me just to get in the plane then and go off to the next stop, and I always flew during the day. I could have flown at night if I wanted to, but the scenery when you get out your way, especially over the Sierra Nevadas and
Yeah.
up from Scottsdale to Henderson, Nevada. Bridgie, you didn't make it down, but we played at the Anthem Country Club there on a very windy day, I'll say, and the scenery out there is just awesome. And then you get up to Portland and you go over the Cascade Mountains, and then in Salt Lake City, the Wasatch Mountains. And by the time you get over the Wasatch Mountains, then you're kind of on the high plains again. And out west, I was about 16,000 feet to 20,000 feet in my plane. I'd have to wear oxygen. The plane has oxygen built in. It's not pressurized, but it's got its own oxygen built in. You have to wear oxygen above 12,500 feet. But most of the other legs, once I got out of Salt Lake City, or once I got to Sioux Falls, those legs were short. I mean, they were hour and a half, hour, 30 minutes.
Really? So I got a question. I was following you on Instagram kind of the whole way, and you were documenting it. Is there any thoughts that you're going to like compile? I don't know how you're going to do it, either through video or through writing, or the whole adventure. Are you going to compile it all?
I've had some media folks kind of inquire about making an hour documentary or something like that, and I'm in somewhat discussions with them. As I may have mentioned to you, one of the reasons about doing this is there was a guy out in Salt Lake City called the Iron Cowboy. And about 8 years ago, I watched a documentary. It was the 50-50-50 Iron Cowboy. He did 50 Ironman triathlons in 50 days in 50 states. His family was driving him around. And I saw that documentary. I had it in the back of my mind, and I talked to a couple media companies about maybe doing something similar, although it in no way compares to what James Lawrence did. In fact, James was supposed to play with me out in Salt Lake City, and he had to cancel at the last minute. But he was my inspiration for doing this trip for sure. One other neat thing is my wife has been to 48 states. She hadn't been to Oregon or Idaho. So by design, we flew her out in the big plane to meet me out in Oregon when I got out there. Then she hopped in the little plane. We got to Eagle, Idaho. She got her 50th state in. The mayor of Eagle, Idaho presented her with the 50 State Club plaque, which was
cool.
Which was kind of fun. And then at Salt Lake City, she jumped ahead to Chicago to see some family. She met up with me again out there when I played in Chicago. And then she was the last stop down here in Sarasota with another guy who's 93 years old that we play with 2 or 3 days a week. His name is Vince Golden. And he was the last, they were the last people we played against at stop number 48.
Wow, you got to meet some amazing people and see a lot of amazing places too. What a great adventure.
Yeah, and I'd call them all my friends, and they all welcome me back. I got 50 states to 50 places to visit now or to stay. And my wife and I, we still have our plane and we fly around. In fact, we're thinking about where we're going to go next week, and I may have to make some calls.
There's no shortage of places to stay or people to play with now. That's wonderful. And if people want to follow you on Instagram to kind of see the post of your trip, give everybody your handle on Instagram.
Yes, Mucho Dinero. So it's MUCHO DEANAERO, like aeronautical. Mucho Dean, my name, Aero, AERO is my Instagram handle. And yeah, there's a lot of good posts up there. I think the last post I did, I reflected on, I was landing it back here at Sarasota on runway 32, a runway that I've been cleared to land on many times. But as I say in my post, this time it was a little different, because as I'm landing, I had the past 26 days swirling in my head, and all the people I met and the great experiences I had, and how thankful I was, to be back safe and sound.
That's amazing. And I really hope that somebody picks this story up and does some sort of documentary, or, like Uncle was saying, a compilation of video, because that would be great to be able to see that from start to finish, and final words from you coming back into Florida. So
Yeah,
hopefully
and
someone out
and
there.
tell those people to reach out to us, and we could do a before and after podcast, and kind of share what we learned.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
thanks for doing the before and after. We talked about doing it after, when we first did our podcast, and it's kind of fun to be able to share and reflect back with you everything that happened. So.
Well, I know our listeners were really into it, because every time I would kind of post an update on how you were doing, we'd get a lot of feedback on it, and everybody was rooting you on. So good job and
Here's,
congratulations.
Thank you. And here's a common misconception. People think I'm a really good player because I'm doing this. Yeah. And there are a lot of disappointed people out there that watch me play. I'm like, this guy's just a normal player. And I said, yeah, I'm just a normal player. I'm not a 4-0 or a 5-0, but
Just
we're
love
out here
pickleball.
having fun, telling some stories.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us and coming back on, sharing all of your fantastic stories with us. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me on. And one day our paths will cross in person, I'm sure.
Oh, we can't wait for that, Dean. Thanks again for coming on. And
Thank you.
thank you to all our listeners who supported Dean on his trip and was following along with us as we were posting his updates. And thank you for joining Bridgie and I. We'll continue to share our pickleball journey. A special thanks to Dean for coming back and sharing those fantastic stories that he had. I mean, it's just kind of a dream of mine to be able to do what Dean did. So it was really neat and fantastic to hear he came back safely. So please support this show by subscribing, and we promise to have more amazing guests like Dean in the future. Let's continue to share your pickleball journey, and let's keep growing the community. See you next time on Third Shot Podcast.